This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone, and you can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my other podcasts, the photography website I have, and you can also find all the other podcasts we've done. We can go back there and just look through history and see all the podcasts we've done. We are rapidly approaching 400 podcasts, Kevin, so we're rapidly getting up there in numbers. How many is that in dog years? I don't know. In any case, a lot of podcasts. Also, you can find a link there where you can contact me if you have any questions or if you have a suggestion for a guest or a topic you'd like to see us have on the podcast. You can do that at hikingbob.com. Also, if you like to, we would appreciate you can support the podcast at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob. And we appreciate all of our patrons who help pay the bills and make this podcast a reality. Joining me today, back from a hiatus after a lot of guests and then being off for a week, is Kevin Wild Westendorf.
Hey everyone, it's Kevin Wild Westendorf here, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Westendorf and wildwestendorf.wordpress.com.
Cool. Well, Kevin, thanks for being here today. And you're up there in Colorado. I'm down here in Arizona, and we've talked about this before. But one of the things that happened over the weekend was a switch to daylight saving time, which does not happen down here in Arizona. It also does not happen in Hawaii. I think those are the only two places left that don't do daylight saving time. And of course, there's always a lot of controversy over that, all the angst and I don't know what else, angst and anger, and to me, it's still kind of lost. I mean, I talked about this in this weekend's newsletter about how I just am kind of lost as to why this is such a big deal. I don't get it, but I'm not dismissing that some people may feel affected by it for a day or two that the clocks have changed, but that's why they also do it very early on a Sunday morning to affect the least number of people who are going to work and doing things like that. But in any case, one of the things that I miss about it down here is that, obviously the number of daylight hours is the same, whether we change the clocks or not, because the physics of the earth going around and, the position of the sun is the same. It's just that with daylight savings time, those hours are the daylight hours are shifted more towards the evening than they are in the morning, if that makes sense. So they just shift when the daylight is occurring. And it's all an artificial thing, I get that. What I like about daylight saving time, and you and I talked about this, Kevin, is that in the summer months when we're out recreating, you have more time later into the day, more daylight hours later into the day to go out and recreate. So if you want to get off work and you want to go for a bike ride, you want to go for a hike, you can do that a little longer into the day after work because you have more hours. That's when the daylight hours have shifted. Here in Phoenix, they kind of don't want to do that, and it makes sense because, as we know, it's horrifically hot down here in the summer, and the sooner that sun gets down, the sooner everybody's happy, the sooner it starts to cool off and stuff like that. So, I kind of like daylight saving time at home. I get why they do it down here. It's also why I'm not here all summer. It's just one of the many reasons why I'm not here all summer, but other than the horrifically hot weather that they have down here in the summer. But in any case, it's just interesting that, Kevin, did you ever have a negative effect from daylight savings time? I get that when we spring forward, we technically lose an hour of sleep because the clock moves forward. It's also Sunday, sleep in an extra hour. What the heck, I guess I'm kind of lost there. Did you ever have an issue where it had a negative effect on you, either moving forward or falling back or anything?
No, actually, back in the day, I used to be a little bit of a partier, and
I'm shocked.
And I remember loving being at the bars during the fall when the clock would go back, and because then it would be last call, and then it's like, oh, just kidding, we've got another hour left. And this was back to my early 20s, so I cannot handle that lifestyle anymore. But And it was funny because
Your
this past
your liver probably thanks you.
yeah, oh yeah. Um, and this past Sunday, with the time change for the spring, to spring forward, um, I actually totally forgot about it because of the lack of a job and stuff. So it's just kind of like it was just not on my radar. And so I woke up and I was just like, why is it so dark outside? Like I was so confused. I've been very, very strict about staying on a schedule and stuff, because I don't want to be like, oh, I don't have a job, so I'm just gonna sleep in and blah 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 and take naps all day and stuff. Um, I'm trying to keep a regular schedule. So when I woke up on Sunday morning, I was so confused.
Oh my
I was
gosh,
very
the world has stopped on its axis. It stopped spinning. What happened?
Yeah, because I think it was like 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and I was just like, why is it still so dark outside? Because it's usually light at this time. I thought I woke up at a weird time or the clock was wrong or something, and I was like, oh yeah, daylight savings time.
Actually, the clock was wrong.
Yeah, but I've always preferred daylight saving time because I prefer the longer days or the effect or the feeling of longer days, just because that's what I prefer in the summertime. I prefer to get up when it's dark and then to end the day when it's still light out, rather than the other way around. So
Yeah, I hear you. I kind of feel the same way. I guess I look at it this way. Another way to look at it is if you're getting up to go to work and then you're going to go do something afterwards. If you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, for example, just throw a number out there, whether the sun comes up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, you're still getting up and going right to work. So if it's still dark, then does it matter? But it does matter to you later in the day when you get off work, how many
yeah,
hours a day. Like I guess that's the other way to put it. Anyway, I think I know there's statistics out there. Oh, accidents go up and this happens and that happens. I don't know. It may be because this thing happened during spring break and people are out partying. Maybe that's why, like you said, the extra hour of drinking is why accidents go up. It has nothing to do with the time change directly. Um, and then of course there's the old sayings from Mark Twain. There's lies, damn lies, and then statistics. So
yep.
anyway, if you've and don't write me if you've had an issue where daylight savings time screwed up your life. I apologize. Sorry about that. I'm not diminishing it. I think it's just a little bit overblown in the media. So for anybody out there listening, if you've had a bad effect of it, sorry to hear it. But I think that this sometimes gets a little overblown. That being said, Colorado did, I think, vote a couple of years ago to get off of daylight saving time. But the vote was only if all the neighboring states agreed to do the same thing. And my understanding is Oregon has done the same thing. They've agreed to get off of daylight savings time. But I think for them to do it, Washington and California have to agree to do it also. I think even Idaho had to do it. So in any case, there are some movements to get rid of daylight savings time. I think in the grand scheme of things, what does it matter? It's an artificial thing. The amount of daylight hours are the same. It's just where we shift them on our clock is a completely artificial thing, and whatever you want to do is just fine. But in any case,
And there's actually a comedian. I don't remember who it was, but he was talking about this, saying like I don't get why people make such a big deal about this, and then he paused and he goes, "It's 1 hour," like,
yeah.
which is true. Like I prefer the longer days and stuff, which is how the Earth works, and in general in the summertime, like that's just how things work.
Yeah.
But I do see a lot of people complaining about like oh my whole week is wrecked. And now I will say, I've got friends who are parents, and so trying to have their young kids on a schedule when the hour changes, I totally get that. Like I give them that. But yeah, it just, I see a lot of people act like it just wrecks their whole week or month or whatever, and it's just like it's and like the comedian said, it's 1 hour.
So let me ask you this: for your friends who have kids and they're trying to adjust to it, how long does it take though? I mean, a day or a couple of days, and then they're completely back in sync.
I think for their kids it takes about a week,
Okay.
and I'm talking they're young kids who are toddlers or like 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. But yeah.
Okay, and they're probably more used to a regular circadian natural cycle than being woken up by an alarm clock. So they're probably on a complete edge. I get that happened. I'm not taking away that it happened. I just think that all the angst over it is just probably a little bit overblown.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think I was around when they invented the first clock, and we've had daylight savings time since then. So I don't get it. Any case, whatever you're doing out there, folks, I hope you're enjoying it. Spring break is coming up. I hope you have a great spring break. I hope you get to do whatever you want to do that's fun. Spring break is kicking in down here in Arizona. We're seeing lots of people out there. Spring training baseball is going on. We've been going to baseball games, lots of stuff going on. This is that great time of the year when everybody gets a little itchy. They're waiting for spring break, and then after that, they're just waiting for the school year to get over with and vacations to start, all that kind of good stuff. This is the time of year when I always got a little bit of a little antsy. I don't think that's changed much because it's like, let's get going with the nice weather here. Come on, let's kick it in. So hope everybody's doing good doing good with that. Kevin, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I wrote about this in the newsletter, the last couple of newsletters. So there's a couple of things going on with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission, and I'll make this as brief as I can, but Colorado Parks and Wildlife is overseen by a commission. Now, I've been on several boards and committees at the city and county level. The difference is a board is typically an advisory thing. People present them ideas or suggestions or issues. They look at it, they make they give the governing body advice on how to deal with it, at which point the governing body can typically do what they want, although generally they follow the advice of their boards because that's why they're there. The commission actually has rule-making ability. They actually have they're granted the authority, the ability to actually make rules and kind of govern. They don't do the day-to-day governing. That's left to the staff, of whatever department they're overseeing. So anyway, Colorado Parks and Wildlife is overseen by a commission. I believe there's 11 people on the commission. And the appointments to that commission are made by the governor. But like any other commission, or, like you go to the federal level, like when somebody's nominated to be Secretary of the Treasury, for example, you have to be approved by the Senate. So in Colorado, the governor makes appointments to the Parks and Wildlife Commission, and then they're approved by the Senate. Now, sometimes those appointments happen when the legislature is not in session, because the legislature only meets for 4 months, I think, a small period of time, and then they're off for the rest of the year until they come back. So sometimes the governor makes those appointments while they're off because he needs to fill a vacancy. They still have to be approved whenever the legislature comes back into session. So they're on the commission, but it's kind of tentative until they're approved. Now, my understanding with the Parks and Wildlife Commission, once you're approved or confirmed by the Senate, you're on until your term expires. At which point, and you can only do 2 terms, it's term limited like anything else in Colorado, and at which point the governor may recommend you to be reappointed, and you still have to go through a confirmation process, or the governor may say, you're not the guy I want, and I want to put somebody else in there, or you could just decide I don't want to be here anymore. So what's happened during the last period when the legislature was out of session, the governor appointed 3 people to the Parks and Wildlife Commission. One of them was supposed to represent outdoor recreation. The other 2 were supposed to represent, I think one was a member at large. The other one was supposed to represent the sports community. We talked about hunting and fishing and stuff like that. They came up for Senate confirmation, and the Senate committee, and there's a subcommittee that looks at these candidates, decided to not recommend 2 of them for confirmation.
Okay.
Some of this is backlash over the whole wolf introduction thing that CPW is managing. Now, let's not forget that was forced upon CPW by the voters. the voters decided that it would be a good thing to have wolves reintroduced into Colorado. Another piece of stupidity I'll get into later. But in any case, so that happened, and they were looking at these candidates and saying, well, you're supposed to be, looking at this, but your background is wildlife, running a wildlife sanctuary. So you're all about saving animals, but you're not representing the ranchers. Because another part of the CPW Commission is there has to be some people on there who represent agriculture, so like ranchers and farmers and things like that. And I forget what the issue was with the other one. So they were, 2 of the 3 people were not recommended. Now they still have to go to the Senate. The Senate could decide to appoint them anyway, although that's highly unlikely. They can decide to confirm, highly unlikely. I mean, why do you have this subcommittee if you're going to override their suggestion? So they were not recommended. In the meantime, what has also been happening in the background, now this is the public face of why these people were not recommended. There was some anger over this whole thing about the wolves, and now there's a measure to put a thing on the ballot to ban the trophy hunting of mountain lions. Behind the scenes, what's also been going on is the recreation community, cyclists, hikers, campers have been concerned, because if you look at the makeup of the commission, and by that I say if you go into the CPW page, look at the commission, and look at people's bios, and they're representing different things, there's no really good representation for the recreation community on the CPW Commission. So the recreation community has been kind of more behind the scenes, and this hasn't been getting the publicity, been arguing that the CPW Commission is not very well balanced towards recreation. That is an opinion that I also share. I don't think they're well balanced towards recreation at all. Almost nobody on the commission who represents outdoor recreation has a parks background or anything like that. They're all wildlife of some sort, so they shouldn't even be there, in my opinion. If you look up the makeup of CPW divides the state into 4 areas: Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest. Every one of those regional managers comes from the wildlife side of things, not from the park side of things. And I want to preface by saying that doesn't mean they're bad people. As a matter of fact, the Southeast region manager, who I know personally, a great guy, is concerned about parks. But if you look at it on paper, it doesn't look like CPW is representing the recreation community. And again, I'm not saying that any one of those regional managers is not looking out for recreation, but it certainly doesn't look like that. When CPW had a vacancy for their director, because the other one had to leave because of some dumb things he said at a conference, and CPW
right. I forgot about that.
And CPW hired a new one, DNR hired a new one. They didn't bring anybody with the recreation background. They brought in somebody again with a wildlife background. So there's some concern with that. And if for more evidence of that, if you look at how the state wildlife area passes are handled, and we've talked about this a lot, about why you need a hunting or fishing license or a wildlife area pass to go hiking in a wildlife area, because they're managed differently than a state park. Those passes are issued from March to March like they're a hunting or fishing license. Well, why is that? Why can't they be issued like they are a state parks pass, where they're from a year from when you buy them? Why? Because that's being run by the wildlife side of thing, and they just don't think like recreational users. And the other part of that is also, why is the state wildlife area pass cost the exact same amount as a fishing license, but I can't go fishing if I have a wildlife area pass? So why shouldn't it be cheaper? I'm not taking anything, I'm just using it. It should be cheaper. Everybody understands the need for having something for recreational, to pay for recreational use on a state wildlife area. Anyway, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of very much wildlife-oriented stuff going on with CPW and really not paying attention to the part. And I'm saying this as very much a CPW advocate, a CPW volunteer. I'm saying this very much as all of that, and I don't think that they're doing great. And this is being reflected on by the concern that a lot of people in the recreation community are having over the whole thing. So what has happened since all that is last Friday, when the Senate was supposed to choose or decide on these 3 candidates, 2 of which were not recommended by their subcommittee, they pushed that vote till, well, it'll be Tuesday, so it'll be the day before you hear this podcast. They pushed the vote to Tuesday, and one of those commissioners resigned, who was not recommended. One of them resigned. So now there's a vacancy automatically. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. So by the time you hear this, things might change. I'll try to send an update out. If nothing else, there'll be an update in the next newsletter if there's any news. If I can, I'll attach an update to the podcast show notes. But in any case, so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. So how does it affect us? Well, this is the commission that runs Colorado Parks and Wildlife. This is the commission that runs Colorado State Parks. This is the commission that runs the agency that runs the granting program for the Trails grant system and all that kind of stuff. This is really pretty important stuff for us to pay attention to. So anyway, I just wanted to throw out what's going on there. This does matter to all of us who use Colorado's parks or who hunt or fish or snowmobile or whatever in Colorado. This really has a far-reaching thing for everybody out there. So I just wanted to put that out there. Kevin, I know that's a lot of stuff. If you got any questions on that, I think you're pretty much in tune with what's going on there, but because you and I have been talking about this stuff for years, but.
Oh yeah. And I just want to say thank you again for the education aspect of it, of how it all works. Because even I forgot about a few parts of it, despite the fact that we talked about this for years now. I definitely agree. Like, I don't think anyone in those positions are bad at their jobs or anything, obviously, but I do wish there was more of a representation of recreation shown and spoken for, though.
Yeah, the way the commission is designed is a certain number of people have to represent what they call parks utilization and recreation. Certain number have to represent sports people. Certain number have to represent agriculture. Certain number of members at large. And on top of that, out of the entire commission, so many of them have to be from the western slope to make sure that, you know, the Front Range, where the majority of the population is, you know, it's not overly represented that, well, everybody is on there is from Denver, anywhere between Boulder and Pueblo, for example, that they're representing people on the other side of the state. And the other side of the state's got a whole different, you know, the Western Slope has a whole different character and needs and issues than the Front Range does on the eastern side of the divide. So that's why they do this stuff. I mean, it's supposed to be that way, but it's not. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know how this is going to break out. You know, I don't know where this is going to go. I'm not sure how this is going to affect anything, but I thought it would be interesting for people just to understand, you know, what direction that's going in. But we'll have to see what happens there. And I have to make a disclosure. I have a sort of vested interest in this, in that months ago, before all this controversy broke out, I actually did apply for a seat on the CPW Commission. And at the time, I was just looking at a seat that was expiring in July of 2024. And I applied for it for all the reasons I just told you. It had nothing to do with these three people, but that I thought the commission didn't represent recreation very well, and I thought it needed better representation on recreation. And I applied for a position there. It's a long shot whether I get it or not. I don't know if this changes my chances of getting on there or not. I'm not a political animal. The governor makes these nominations. He doesn't know me from Adam, so my application isn't. I have a lot of people endorsing me with letters of endorsement, but I don't know if it makes any difference for that. But all my application went in before all this controversy over these three nominees started. So I'm not like jumping, oh, you're getting rid of three people, let me jump in here and see if I can horn my way in there. I actually put this in before that happened a couple months ago. So I'm going to be completely forward with that. I didn't mention it in the last podcast. I meant to, and then I forgot to do it. But in any case, that's what's going on there too. So I do have an interest in it. I would like to be on the CPW Commission. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that at least as far as the recreation community goes, I could represent it better. And as far as the wildlife community, I'm not a hunter or fisherman or anything like that, but I think I know enough about what's going on there that I can at least listen to the experts and look at both sides of things and make a decision. So, in any case.
But are you going to mention that you had a barbecue with the governor last weekend? I'm kidding.
Do not get any rumors started. Oh my God, Kevin, don't get any rumors started.
I'm kidding.
That did not happen. That did not. Kevin, you're going to get me in trouble.
I'm so sorry. No, I am kidding. I'm on the record. That was a joke.
I know, it was a joke. Yeah. Anybody who knows me knows that's not going to happen. That's definitely not going to happen. So anyway, I didn't have him over at my house as a barbecue. I sent a barbecue to his place. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what's going on. And it doesn't matter whether this isn't a concern because I put in an application for it. This has been a concern for a lot of people for a while, that it's just not very well representing the parks and wildlife, the parks community, the recreation community as much. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll keep everybody up to date on that. I have not heard word one from anybody since I put my application in, so I don't know if it's been tossed in, as they say, the circular file, or wherever it is. But in any case, Kevin, one last thing I wanted to talk about. Let's move on from that. There's road work going on in Colorado Springs on I-25 on the southbound lanes between Garden of the Gods and Fillmore. They're adding, I guess what they're doing is they're lengthening the acceleration lane for when you get on southbound at Garden of the Gods, so that it goes all the way down to Fillmore Street. Technically, they're adding a lane, but they can't call it a lane. It's an acceleration deceleration lane. So that requires some work to go on, and I-25 crosses over on a bridge over some roads that go below, but beneath it, it crosses over some other roads. And on that road, one of the things that cross over is the Sinton Trail, which is a popular crosstown hiking and cycling trail. Because there's road work going on that level and above people, there have been flaggers from the construction company there, just kind of telling people to stop and go and stuff like that. For some reason, some people have been acting like complete jerks and giving those flaggers a hard time, the construction workers a hard time, cursing at them, yelling at them because they're being asked to stop so a dump truck can go by or something going on above their heads can go on without anybody getting injured. They're seriously considering about just shutting down the Sinton Trail because some people just have to be jerks about it. I don't understand what some people's problem is with that. They're trying to do a job. It's hard work. The last thing they need is some self-entitled jerk. I'm sorry, I'm using the same word over. I can't think of a word I can use on this podcast and get away with it. Some self-entitled whatever who's going to give him a hard time because his cycling is held up for 2 minutes because they're doing important work around there and that needs to be done. And I don't see you dragging a shovel out there and digging a ditch. So my message is, give these people a break. Quit being a jerk. Let them get to work. Then if they tell you to stop for a couple of minutes so a dump truck can go by, which, by the way, if it hit you, would flatten you. They wouldn't even find anything but a greasy spot on the ground. Let them do their work and then just go on. But instead, you're risking having that trail shut down. And if you're pissed off now, wait till you're pissed off then when that happens. I don't get it.
Oh, yeah. I would much rather wait a few minutes than risk stuff falling on my head and then I get a brain injury or I get severely injured with my body in some way. Actually, a recent memory or reminder that I got was my friend and I were headed to Brainerd Lakes. So you have to go through Boulder and a bunch of small towns to get there and stuff. And there was this one town that we went through where we had to stop because it was one way only. I was glad to just wait. It was annoying, but it was fine because it's I would rather my car to be safe, me to be safe, and everyone else to be safe.
Exactly. Just be safe, people. Listen to what these people have to say. Let them do their job. Move on. Quit being a jerk. Don't yell at these people. They're just doing a job. Oh, for crying out loud. And they're probably not getting paid all that well to do it anyway. So why are we giving it? It's like giving the person at a fast food place a hard time because they forgot to throw a tomato packet in your thing. Oh, for crying out loud, just get over it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kevin, I think we're running out of time. You got any last? We're almost out of time. Got any last things you want to throw in there before we go?
No, I think I'm good. I'm just enjoying the weather and the longer days now. So,
okay, Kevin, thanks for being here. We will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. Hey, everybody, before you go, and thanks for listening to my podcast, don't forget to check out Stevie and Will on Chronology's Functional Wellness podcast. You can tune in for tips on slow aging, functional wellness, and healing through food, movement, and a healthy lifestyle. Check it out here at studio809podcast.com.